Hi, my name is Eeva-Jonna Panula, or Eevis Panula, and I'm Senior Android Developer and Accessibility Specialist, and I work at Oura.
Hello, my name is Carolina Pinto. I'm UX experience designer, and I have a cross background in industry. Right now, working for Candy Crush.
So yeah, I could tell a bit more about myself, and as I mentioned, I'm now Android developer, but I actually have a background in web development. So I used to work as a web developer for about 6 years before I switched to Android development. Other than like being a developer, I also love to learn new things, and I love to share what I've learned. So I actually speak at different events, and I've write a blog. So I'm sharing things in written format as well. I usually write about accessibility and also, well, Android development, other things as well, but like accessibility is the main topic. And when I'm not doing something that's related to work, I could say, or coding, I actually explore the beautiful nature around where I live. I actually live in Finland, which is something I forgot to mention. And yeah, this like nature here, it's just amazing. And I either usually hike or explore the archipelago in by kayak. So that's like, if you ever come to Finland, I highly recommend trying these outdoor activities. And other than that, I'm a disabled person. I have a cognitive disability. I've hit my head a couple of years ago, and that has caused, well, some things, mostly about memory and concentration. And other than that, I also have problems with animations, but I can tell about that a bit more later. So how about you? Want to tell more about yourself?
Thank you so much for introducing yourself, Eva. It's such an interesting background. Yeah, so from my side, I start as a graphic designer. I'm from Caracas, Venezuela. And then I moved to Barcelona to study. So I study art direction, and then I study research for innovation. And that was the moment when I fell in love with user experience. So as a designer, it was really simple for me going in that direction. And from the previous studies, yeah, I have been going through different kind of industry. I start in the banking industry, then I jumped to the tech, and now in gaming. So yeah, I have been enjoying a lot this journey with the different kind of backgrounds and learning much more and having fun with all these new learnings. More from my side, when I'm not improving experience in digital life, we have something in common. I really love nature as well. I love horse riding. I have spent much more of time of my life in a horse. So yeah, it's something that I really enjoy. So I'm looking forward visiting Finland to being able to see these beautiful landscapes. One thing more, I'm part of WWCode organization. I'm a lead volunteer in the Barcelona network. Yeah, happy to join to the team. It's such a wonderful experience being able to share with other women looking for improve the tech paths to be able to improve their life. Yeah, so much more. That's a little part of myself. Yeah, so maybe we can start talking about how you got into web accessibility.
Thanks for the intro. It was also super interesting to hear and so cool things. So yeah, I got into web accessibility some years ago. It's like, especially the past about 3 years, they are like really hard to count, like they are just a blur. So I'm just gonna say a couple of years ago. And my first experience with accessibility was when at the company where I was working at that time, we had this short introduction to accessibility because of the new requirements, or well, not that new, but requirements, and the law changed so that like public sector websites and well, digital services needed to be accessible. So we had this like short intro to accessibility. And the instructor on that course, or like it was basically 2 hours, they were blind, and they were using a screen reader, and the whole lecture, it was really interesting. But the thing that I remember the most, or like the best, was when they were demonstrating how they use a screen reader, and they asked for an example site from us, and then somebody said that, okay, try HSL, which is the like Helsinki city, I can't remember the name in English, but like the public transportation, and like the site where you can search for routes and buses and like how you can basically get from one place to another. And they were trying it out. They started navigating on it. They were listening to it. And I just remember their like expression when they were so like, what is this? Like, what is this site? Like, I have no idea what's going on here. What is it? And that really got to me. And like, that was the moment when I started that I want to start learning more about accessibility and like what it means and how I can make actually websites that are usable for like anybody, basically. So like if they are or are not using any assistive technologies or like other things. That was the moment when I started learning. So yeah, I have to admit that before that, I was the person who was building websites using HTML, well, I could say wrong. So for example, I was building buttons out of divs. And if you build a button from a div, then by adding on-click handler, it works for a mouse user, but it doesn't work for keyboard user. It doesn't, like the screen reader users, they don't even know that there is a button, for instance. And I felt like, okay, yeah, this is fine. Like it works for me, so it works for everyone. But after that instruction or like seeing that expression, I decided to start learning more. And the first topic I picked up was actually semantic HTML. Yeah, and I'm really ashamed of like how I did before that, but now I'm happy that I've been learning a lot about that. So yeah, how about you? How did you get into web accessibility?
Such an interesting experience there that you could think back in the time. But yeah, the important point is that you learn new things and you are able now to do it in the best way. So yeah, so from my side, I think that the first contact that I had with accessibility and including all kind of users in my job was the really first job that I had after finishing my studies in research for innovation. I remember I worked for a company that it was much more related with healthcare. This company was in charge to develop technology solution for a specific kind of user with some kind of disability, or maybe a lot of users in elderly ages. So yeah, it was pretty interesting, like trying to improve their daily life. And in that moment, I was like more conscious, and I learned a lot of things about how we can improve the daily life of these people, make it feel more comfortable in their own house. So this is something really important. So to improve the quality of life, the self-awareness about what can you do by yourself and recover the independency. So it was such a great experience to experiment new things, try some kind of tests with the users. I think it was the point of inflection from my side to start thinking about broader and be able to include all kind of users in my daily work. So basically this company relates directly with teleassistance and telemonitorization. and was interesting going on some kind of detail how to improve the hardware, for example, how we can create new kind of devices so they can go through the house and being able to, for example, they have some situation they could call to emergency, or maybe they are ashamed about needed to call to emergency. So that was a point where maybe you can talk with someone from the company or some kind of a close familiar or friend that can give you that extra point of help to this kind of users. So yeah, that was my introduction to accessibility, and I think everybody have different way to going into this topic, but at the end is so much interesting and you're helping other people, so it's difficult to go outside from the topic after you're in.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's definitely something like once you get into web accessibility, it's usually just going deeper and deeper and deeper. So
Yeah,
and I think like, well, that's been like wonderful to learn more, but then like at least I've felt that like right now after years of learning about these topics, and I feel like I know just enough to know that how little I know. Do you have that feeling?
yeah, when you start learning, the moment that you know that you don't know anything is the moment that you are starting learning in the reality.
Yep. Yeah. But it's also great to like when I have like discussions with my colleagues and friends to see that I actually know like a lot already. So like
Nice.
even though like the feeling for myself is that I don't know anything basically.
Of course.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so maybe we can talk a little bit about considering physical and other divergent disabilities, thinking about your experience. Have you been in this situation where you can relate some kind of experience to accessibility around this?
Yeah, I think like one thing that's related to these themes and my work has been like the understanding of like how different types of disabilities there are, and how like different considerations there are. I'm actually right now writing my master's thesis. I'm like one hobby I didn't mention is that I'm collecting master's degrees. I'm right now studying my second master's degree, and that will not be the last
Oh my
one.
God, that's impressive.
Yeah, I don't know, like I love learning new things. But yeah, I'm writing my master's thesis, and the topic is actually like Android developers and accessibility, and how to like increase the knowledge and how to make it easier for them, for us to develop more accessible apps. And I've been going deep into the theory, and yeah, so I've been writing about Android developers and challenges on like accessibility, and why like why Android apps are not so accessible in general. And one challenge is that accessibility is often about screen reader accessibility, and it's really important topic. It indeed is, but usually like there are often like, well, for example, cognitive disabilities or physical disabilities that are not related to, for example, sight, are not that often considered, because it's usually about screen reader accessibility. So I think like that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and how to actually think about, for example, keyboard accessibility, like how to make websites and apps possible to use with keyboard, and also with, well, switch device is another type of device for like in sort of like input method for when in the mobile world. So these things are super interesting, and also from like cognitive accessibility perspective, because actually cognitive accessibilities or like cognitive disabilities are actually the biggest group of disabilities out there, and they consist of, for example, like things like autism, ADHD, but also like brain injuries can cause different things. That's me, for example, and other such things. And also like in some considerations, it's also about like mental health, but some like categorizations actually define mental health as a like separate topic. Anyway, thinking about those, like how to make apps and websites more accessible for people with cognitive disabilities, that's like super interesting topic, and there are so many considerations. So yeah, I think like I could be just speaking about this and going on with this, but I'm now going to ask like, what are your experiences, and how have you like felt the like the differences of different disabilities and like access needs?
Yeah, so absolutely, like trying to address all kind of accessibilities could be a hard challenge because it's so much different kinds. Being able to include everybody in the same solution is so much too difficult. So at the end, personalization could really work in addressing special needs. Thinking about banking, because much more my experience is there. For many people with disabilities, is usually that they could have a lot of financial insecurity, and it's pretty important to be able to give an experience that can exceed and they with their limitations. So at the end, it's right for being able to manage our own money the way that we could understand, and being able to address what we need in the specific moment that we need it. So thinking about banking is pretty complex and important, so to be able to develop an accessible experience. So for example, for physical accessibility, working in a pretty interesting project about improving credit cards that we add like some kind of improvement to the card to be able to be accessible for blind people and can be more easy to understand how to use it. At the end, you can just think that a card is pretty simple, but when you need to put it in the ATM machine, could be tricky depending on your limitations or any kind of physical accessibility as well. So maybe the ATM screen is not as well as accessible, or thinking about broader like self-service kiosk or video conferences screens. So it's not really designed for everybody. So it's a pain, but was interesting working on the improvement on these cards. For example, we add some kind of mark in the card that they could communicate what is the right side of the card to be able to put it in the ATM machines, or putting bigger numbers in the card. So when you can put your fingers, you can easily read. It's not simple and smaller numbers there. So it's a little thing that you can add to products to really improve and change life and make it easy for everybody.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like for somebody who doesn't think when using a credit card, because like I can see it, I work with it, because like it's a like there's a good word for that in English, but I can't remember it. But still, like it's so easy to forget that it's not that easy for everybody.
Yeah, it's like something automatic because we use it every day and it's so interiorized and we know what we are doing in that moment. But yeah, we haven't considered the situation as well.
Yep. You mentioned personalization. Have you experience with that and accessibility, and how to like use personalization for making more accessible products?
Thinking more in service design, that we was looking for how is the best way in this company that I talked before, the best way to improve service design, because some people don't like to have labels because of the disability. So it's difficult to give that service personalized if the user don't want to identify themselves as a person with any specific disability. So we was in the test that we was doing and how to improve the experience, we was looking for the best way to improve the way that they could identify themselves, because that was the baseline to be able to improve the service, maybe adding some kind of extra service where we can address special needs. So we was working on in a flow where we was changing the way we relate with the user and not trying to put a label. Much more, we had some kind of forms, we much more broader words, and the way we define the specific disability was broader, and we like on a plain text to be able to everybody can understand it, but feel like, okay, I can be related with this kind of disability, but that doesn't define me. That's not what I am. That doesn't define me. So it's like how the user would like to be helped more than, okay, I have this kind of disability, so everything is going to be around this topic.
I bet that has made a difference, like a real
Yeah,
difference.
and the end small things, we think that it's not much more important, but the people that is living with some kind of disability, they live with that every day, every single day. So it's not in our hands, remember you what you are or what you are not because of disability. So talking broader and try to not put in labeling in people with disability is pretty important in the experience, I think so.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like personalization is actually like one of the topics that when thinking about accessibility, I think about it a lot, like from like technical perspective. And I think like if we want to build truly accessible products, for example, it will be all about personalization, because like if we build one solution that is accessible, it's accessible for some, but it probably is not for all. So it's I think it's the only way to like be able to actually create accessible products or more accessible products for all. So yeah, I can say that my personal thing is like what I hope that one day I will find from all the apps and like services I'm using is this one setting where I can toggle on that I want to see labels with like when there are icons. So like there's an icon and then there would be a label that tells what that icon is. So like because for myself, I've been fighting this fight in many workplaces and companies where I've worked, and I've been trying to tell to designers that, hey, I don't understand this like UI if you don't give me labels. Okay, I will learn it once I use it for a like long time. I'm like, it will take longer time for me than for an average person to learn what some like icons mean, if because there are like hardly any universal icons actually. But like then there's always this like counter argument that, hey, like if I add labels to each like every icon, then it means there is so much clutter and it makes the UI really hard to understand, and we usually end up somewhere in between. But like I would love to have this setting that I can toggle the labels on, that I can see them for like, well, the labels for every icon, and then like those who don't need it or for who they whom that would make like the UI even more like harder to understand, then they wouldn't need to use those. So that's something that I really want to hear. And if somebody is listening to this podcast and thinking about this, please implement it. I'm really like asking for that. But yeah, I think like personalization is like the answer for making more accessible products. And also, as you told about not having labels in other meaning, having like more inclusive products as well.
Yeah, of course. So at the end, it's on us to push for adding accessibility to the products that we create, right? So it could be much more related to the way we work, the culture that we have in companies or the corporations. So is that in line with that responsibility? What kind of product would you like to address to your users? What are you looking for at the end? It's much more responsibility for everybody related with product or in the company that can create this awareness, so everybody can have the space to be able to develop the best way to do this product to be accessible.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think like what I've seen in different workplaces, if the company prioritizes accessibility kind of like from the top, then there is always like, well, the product is better because there is always more time for making the product or like the app service, whatever, more accessible, because well, the push is coming from the top and not from like, for example, from a single developer or something like that. So that's why I think it's definitely like, well, companies can do so much.
Yeah, like adding the accessibility goal as a priority. So yeah, everybody can be aligning into that direction, or maybe it's not really needed a big effort for us to try to push back into, hey, let's take this feature to develop because we need much more accessibility, or let's try to, I don't know, change something that could be really simple. And for example, as you say, the UI side. So is everybody's aware of what we're doing, how to include everybody into the solution, is much more easy to push back for accessibility inclusion.
I definitely agree. By the way, do you have any ideas on like how all technologists could incorporate accessibility into their, or I'm inclined to say our work?
I think it depends a lot of the product and the kind of industry you are. Sometimes you are forced to add it to be able to reach with the law, or maybe not. So it depends a lot. Thinking about banking, so it's pretty important to be able to accessible. So yeah, basically maybe working with third parties, companies that can help you to address the accessibility to the products, pretty useful, because sometimes you don't have the team. A team that is only dedicated to make the product accessible, or maybe you don't have an expert in accessibility in your team. So designers and developers and the team is working by themselves, not have all the answers. That is the usual thing what happens. You don't need to be an accessible expert in accessibility, but it's important to have like a baseline where you know what we can do, we can't, and then from there I think that the more easy solution is trying to be putting in your team someone that can give you that kind of answer, or maybe other companies that they are really expert on that. So it's the easy way. If you don't have it in your team, just trying to put someone that can help you, and if it's not because you are looking for improvement only for the product, is for legal reasons. So that's a really first step to be able to improve in that way. And as we say at the beginning, when you are in accessibility topic and you really understand the needs and why we are doing that, it's really to continue and trying to develop at yourself whatever you need to do to create an accessible product. What about you? What kind of background you have with this? Any other kind of experience?
Yeah, I think like, well, in addition to like what companies can do, but I think like we all can learn more, like and kind of like start somewhere. We don't need to build everything accessible right away. Like it's okay to start small in a way. And I think like every like improvement, it's like it's better than not doing anything at all. So yeah, I think like just starting is the kind of the key. And I like this progress over perfection thinking, so that like, well, doing some progress, that's the like important thing. And I also like think that every role can have some like influence. Like, of course, like I'm thinking a lot from developers perspective, and I'm thinking about the like technical implementations and stuff like that. And that's somewhere where we all developers can do something, but then like designers have so much control over, well, a bit different things than developers. And also like project managers can like prioritize accessibility more and like require accessibility. And then like I could go on with different roles having like different impacts. So I think that's like, it's good to remember that we all can do something, and so that we can do something, we need to learn like what to do in a way, what to do in our roles, for example. So yeah.
Yeah, everybody have something to do related with accessibility from their own roles, and I think the whole corporation. So yeah, it's a work for everybody.
Yeah, that's true. And like we all can actually start with, we don't need to even go into like the work context to start with accessibility. We can start by adding, like in social media, for example, we can add alt texts for like text alternatives for images, or we can use like camel case for hashtags if there are multiple words. So I mean that if there are like more than one word, each first letter is capitalized, it's easier to read for like anybody, and it actually like you can create confusion without using those, like capitalizing the first letters of the words. That's what I meant actually. And but also like it makes it easier for screen readers to read what's there, because then screen readers will know that, okay, this is a word. But yeah, so there are also these kind of things that we can start doing on our like daily life, even outside the work. So I think that's a great thing about accessibility. We don't need to like, well, we can start small actually. So.
Yeah, it's a work for everybody, and you can start using and implementing in your daily life as well. So it's impressive, the power of accessibility.
Yeah.
When you are looking for example, when job description, or do you usually make some kind of questions, or you're looking for something that you can have a better idea what is the culture in the company about accessibility, or what are they looking for about it? Is something that you worries, or when you are there you start looking for how to they usually manage the accessibility point?
I usually like ask about two things or two themes. I usually ask about like what they are doing to create the work environment accessible. So what they are thinking, and like what procedures they have, or like what procedure is not the right word here, but like what kind of things they have and plans and everything, because that actually tells a lot. Because like if the person I'm asking is just starting to think that, yeah, I think our office is not accessible for somebody who is using a wheelchair, then like, and that's all, then I know that this topic has not been considered much.
Red flag.
But yeah. But I've discussed with some companies that have like lots of different examples, how they have like improved accessibility, how they have renovated their office to be physically more accessible, how they've considered cognitive accessibility and other things. So that's been really awesome to hear, that like the culture inside the company has been like towards accessibility. And the other thing that I usually keep asking is that how like the companies are considering accessibility in their products, or if it's a consultancy, then in projects. And here again, there are different answers. If I'm talking in Finnish, the word accessibility is saavutettavuus, and okay, it's understood as sometimes as like, is our office located in a way that it's easy to come to the office by different means of transportation? So that's like, that's sort of accessibility. And then like, if that's all they say, then I'm like, okay, yeah. So you don't think about people with disabilities at all, because like in these conversations, it's not about like people with disabilities. It's about like just arriving to the office from different locations. And well, those conversations have been interesting, but like then there have been also like really good answers that, okay, like we have customers who are like from public sector, and the law requires the projects to be accessible, and we are ensuring accessibility in these projects in these like different ways. So like, again, it's there are variety of different answers there, but these are basically the two things that I usually like ask, and where I'm starting to kind of feel like what's the culture and how they see accessibility. How about you? Do you have some questions?
I don't really practice any kind of question, but it's something really important to consider. But I feel like I have been having some kind of grow, because in thinking about Latin American context, it's not really usual that you take so much into consideration accessibility in any kind of sense, thinking about products, thinking about physical areas, and thinking about office or whatever could include accessibility. It's like something that we could have it, but it's not a baseline for us at all. So having the opportunity to go there, stay there, and then came here into Europe and see how things work really made you open your eyes and put it in the center. So it's more closer to me to be able to understand when accessibility is pretty needed, and it's much more time in every time. So at the end, it's like taking in consideration that and working with accessibility every day make you be more conscious and start worrying about where I'm working, in what kind of culture I would like to develop my skills, what kind of mates I would like to have around me, and to be able to develop together. Accessibility is something that really cares to the product that I'm developing or not. So yeah, it's a good practice what you are doing about asking these kind of things.
Well, how about like when building things? I want to just use the word things here, but well, different things like apps and well, basically digital services. Are there some things that you kind of like consider first, or like some, well, things that you consider?
Yeah, so thinking about gaming, for example, we don't have any kind of restriction or law that can give you that lane by to put us in a situation that we really need to address for accessibility. But it's a lot of things that we can do. As in the industry, we don't really have this kind of law that make us make any kind of solution to be able to add accessibility, but at the end is a baseline to be able to make the game more fun and accessible for everybody. And it's a lot of things that we can do, starting for putting captions or being able to make any kind of features that can give you better readability, or I don't know, it's many things that you can do. And then in the end, I think gaming industry is pretty far from what we would like to have as an accessible industry, because other industries are prioritizing accessibility because laws. But the gaming industry is like in a place where I could do it, but anybody tell me what I need to do, or anybody make me do what is needed to do to create accessible product. So yeah, it's like much more for any kind of a study that can decide what to do, but it's a lot of things to do. I think it's a much more effort for the studies to be able to create accessible product. What do you think about?
Yeah, I think like when building especially mobile apps or like I could actually like, again, there is this word that I'm looking for, comparing. That's the word. When comparing, especially like web and like mobile, I think like in mobile development and building mobile apps, accessibility or like building more accessible apps, it's easier than on the web because of like in the web, like and with JavaScript, for example, you can do lots of things. You can do lots of good things, but you can also do lots of bad things. And there is also like lots of responsibility for a developer. So if I give an example of animations, so I mentioned in the beginning that I have problems with animations, and basically like if I see certain types of animations like on digital screens, so like on a like laptop or like a external screen, phone screen, anywhere, I start feeling dizzy. I might feel disoriented. I might start feeling like throwing up, and it's not fun if that happens during a work day. And it usually takes like half an hour for me to recover from such events. So I can't really like work, for example, during that time. And there's actually this operating system level setting called reduced motion that I use. And if the apps, the websites respect that setting, then I'm fine, because there is a version that doesn't include animations. And on the web, it's like the developer needs to implement that. They need to know about it, they need to implement that, and then like it's there. But for mobile, it's actually like respected automatically. Or well, there are cases, at least on Android, when it's not respected, but like I'm not going to go deeper into that one. But like what I really love is that it's like many of these accessibility services and settings are actually like respected out of the box for, at least on Android. I haven't been developing iOS, so I don't know much about that one, but for Android. But then there are things that developers need to consider, like, well, adding, for example, text alternatives. They are not automatically added for images and graphical elements, or like, of course, like captions, closed captions for videos, and also like setting roles for different elements on screen, checking that it's actually operable with physical like keyboard or switch device, and other things that need to be kind of considered. But I have to say that I really love how like at least on Android, things like work more smoothly, and I don't need to consider that much. Of course, I need to remember lots of things, but lots of things work out of the box. So that's a like really nice thing.
Thinking about what you mentioned about the animations, I remember one time in how animation can affect, because it depends a lot of the sensitivity as well. So I remember one time when I was in a Disney park, I was with my couple, and I was crazy to go to the attraction about Harry Potter journey. So I was pretty happy making in the queue a lot of hours there. And then like suddenly, maybe 10 people before going to the ride, someone told you that is all about big screens where you move through the screens, and it could be, you can feel dizzy, maybe it could be confusing, I don't know. And then my couple say, okay, I'm not coming. It's like, what? No, we was like 3 hours here in the queue. So he have had previous experience about this kind of roller coaster with a screen, and make him feel really bad, but hardly bad. So at the end, you are not creating an accessible experience, or maybe you are looking for that. Please let people know before doing the queue. So, but thinking about in general, at the end, it's pretty you are excluding a lot of users, or maybe you are not really making your user understand what it's the meaning of this. So yeah, it's really interesting with animations or this big screen or this kind of experience that maybe you are not aware that you are sensitive to this. Maybe you put yourself in a situation that could be pretty uncomfortable. thinking about mobiles, digital experience. So it's a lot of things that we can do. So from disabling camera scrolling, or I don't know, reducing the screen shake, or thinking about games, we could even reduce the game speed. So it's a lot of things to consider, and being able to give the user the agency to be able to control and have the control of the experience is pretty important from my point of view.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we are kind of coming to the end of this discussion. Do you have any like final tips for creating more accessible products?
I think it's a lot of things that we can do to address accessibility. I think that the most important at the end is like think about your user and a broader user, not only what defines your specific user. It's like try to think people first, try to be inclusive in your design that you do, and consider the full range of human diversity, because at the end we have a lot of different kind of be and understand things and process information. So it's really important to be able to think for your users. What about you? Do you have any kind of tip to improve accessibility?
Yeah, I could continue from that one. It's like learn more about accessibility, different like people with different disabilities. And I think the best way to do that is to actually listen to and read and like, well, any way that you want to consume these stories, but like listen to stories from people with disabilities and how we actually like how we use digital products and what are kind of the pain points there and what are like good things as well. So I think like learning more about people with disabilities and listening to us, that's maybe the final tip I want to give. Maybe like as a final question, where can people find you after this and connect with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So basically, I'm much more active in LinkedIn. You can find me by my name, Carolina Pinto. So I would like to find you there and connect and still talking about accessibility. Maybe you can share your networks so people can connect with you as well.
Yeah, I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm Eeva-Jonna Panula, and we will share the link on the, I think show notes is the right word here. And you can also find me and my blog and basically links to anything that I do from my website, which is eevis.code, so eevis.codes. All right. Hey, it's been really nice to have this conversation with you and talk about accessibility. So thank you so much. And thank you for listening, like anyone who is listening.
Yeah, Eva, thank you so much. I enjoyed the conversation as well. So thanks everybody for hearing us.